In this video, we're going to be modeling the knight chess piece, and we're realistically going to be simplifying this quite a bit, because again, I haven't shown you guys that many modeling tools yet, so having neck muscles and eyes and nostrils and stuff might be a little bit too complex. We're going to keep it really simple. So we're going to start from our pawn chess piece, so again, we're not starting from scratch. And right now I'm in my pawn.lxo, so I'm just going to save this to a save as. Let's back out a folder. Go to our knight folder. There's already a knight in here. Let's go ahead and name this knight 01 and just iterate, hit save. So I have this image in here. This is just more for reference or inspiration. I'm not going to be actually lining this one up perfectly. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually address the bottom right here. Again, right here we have a kind of skinnier piece, and then the top part is a little bit different. So I'm just going to go to a different view. I want to delete this whole edge right here. So let's actually select two polygons, hit L, and that'll select a loop. Again, if you're not keen on hotkeys, you can just middle mouse select and grab this. Hit delete, that kind of cuts that portion off. And then now, since these are two separate contiguous meshes or separate pieces of polygons, kind of groups of polygons, I can double click on this and then just hit delete. So right here we can see that the overall pedestal or base of this piece is a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do is just really carefully middle mouse select and grab all of these verts. Then I'm just going to move this up a set amount. So let's move this up, say 20 millimeters. Hit the space bar to drop that tool. Now we're going to select the next row up, again excluding that bottom row, and move this up maybe another 20 millimeters. Let's just keep this kind of consistent. And again, we're just doing it this way. One, so we know that we have some consistency. But two, we'll get an overall even look. Something like that. And again, this is something that if we wanted to, I could select all of these polygons, grab the scale tool, and kind of use the scale tool in any way that I see fit. It's really up to you on this one. With where this is at, I'm actually thinking that this is a little bit too big, so let's actually use that scale tool. We will grab this little thing of polygons, or set of edges, right here. So a different way of selecting this is if I click and drag, I have these four edges selected, then I can hold shift and double click on one of the ones that are selected. Now I can use the scale tool. So R, scale that down, move it down a little bit. So actually what I'm going to do is grab this portion right here and scale this up. There we go, just scale that up a little bit. So something like that. And again, I can come in here at any time and kind of fine tweak this. And again, it doesn't need to match this perfectly because again, after we get to the top half, we're going to be kind of going from our own rule book and not really modeling all this in. So now what I'm going to do is, instead of working with this round hole that has a total of 12 edges, I'm actually going to create a cube. So hold Control, left click, have a cube in here. So then I can switch the polygons, double click my cube, and scale this and bring it up. So I'm going to effectively box model this horse, and I'm going to keep it really, really simple. So looking at this, let's go ahead and hit the space bar or the escape key to deselect or kind of turn off our move tool. The overall main portion of his head where it comes into the neck, this is what I'm going to be starting with as far as my box goes, and then we'll kind of extrude out a mouth, and then after I'm kind of happy with where the head's at, I'll worry about connecting it down here. So let's go ahead, middle mouse click, W to move. Let's pull this edge back, and again, this is just getting this base head right here. So let's go ahead and switch to a different camera angle. Let's go ahead and narrow his head a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more narrow than the base of this. Then what we can do is select this polygon right here, extrude, and pull out. So again, this right here is going to be kind of the front nose. And this is going to end up being the hole down here that we connect to. So again, probably have some little ears up here. So thinking this through, I'm going to want to have a hole right here. This is where effectively this hole is going to connect into this hole. And again, this is a little bit more of a problem-solving modeling strategy that we're doing here. So again, a little bit more complicated than the other pieces, but again, looking at this piece, we kind of knew going into it, it was going to be a little bit more complicated. So what I want to do is kind of preemptively think, I'm going to have 12 edges down here. What can I do to make 12 edges right here? And where would I need them in a sense? So the first thing that I'm going to do is let's actually grab these two edges and again, under my edit, do a loop slice. Settings wise, we have it set to, slice selected is turn off. And again, this uniform button, it's at 50%. So again, if it wasn't at 50%, I could hit that uniform button. So call that good, hit the escape key. Now let's double click this edge down here. Now it says we have a total of 6 edges because again, we had a cut that came in right here and a cut that came in right here. So now instead of this being one edge and this being one edge, now this is 1, 2 edges. And this guy right here is 1, 2 edges. So the next thing that I'm going to do is let's go ahead and select these 2 edges right here and do a loop slice. And let's actually set this number to 3. Hit the escape key to drop that tool. Now let's double click this edge. Now we have a total of 12 edges down here. So again, 12 edges on the bottom of this shape that used to be a box and 12 edges on this shape that is effectively a cylinder or a circle. It's a round hole. If we look at it from the top, it's just round. So I'm going to undo this, but temporarily I could go ahead and double click here, go to my bridge tool, just have these settings right here. Let's actually reduce that so we can see these bridge settings a little bit better, and then right click over here. Now we can see how this connects. So again, I know that it's going to effectively connect. So again, that was just more of a proof of concept. I'm going to hit the undo button to not do that. And again, if I, for some reason, go ahead and redo that real quick, hit the bridge key and accidentally dropped the tool, and I couldn't undo that for whatever reason, I could just go in here, select these polygons, and delete those out. So let's use all these new little cuts that we got to go ahead and start kind of refining this horse's head. So what we can do is, the other thing, we probably won't make a mouth in here. Again, just keeping it kind of simple. What we can do is start rounding off the head. So I'm just going to grab this edge right here, just pull it forward a little bit. So again, if I look at this from the top, it rounds it out a little bit more. And I could maybe grab the back and pull that and have it round out a little bit as well. The other thing, if I was looking at this horse head from the top, I would assume that kind of the most narrow point would be right here, give or take, and then it would get a little bit wide at the tip of the nose, but probably the widest point is going to be around right here, maybe even the base of the neck. But again, this area is going to be wider than this area, which is going to be wider than this area. So let's actually select 2 edges right here and do a loop slice. Again, I use the hotkey, but if you don't like hotkeys, it's under this Edit tab. On older versions of Modo, it might be called the Mesh Edit tab, either or. And then my count, I'm going to take this one back down to 1. Hit Enter. Now I'm happy with this scenario. Hit Escape, and it drops that tool. So let's go ahead and scale this in a little bit. And again, I'm using the Scale tool instead of the Move tool because I want this to evenly go in. If I was to use the Move tool, I could move this one in and then move this one in, but I don't know how evenly matched those are. So I can actually double click this edge, get the loop, switch to the Scale tool. Again, those are right up here, nice and handy. I can scale this in, and they both evenly go in at the same time. So let's go ahead and maybe take these 3 edges, so left click, and kind of swipe across. Hold Shift, left click, and it grabs all those edges. R to scale, pull these out. Let's even maybe grab this one. Scale him out as well. Something like that. And then the other thing, if I was to look at this horse from the front, I would assume that the top of his head would kind of be the high point, or the center of his head if I was looking at it from the front. So let's go ahead and grab these edges, just the ones on the top. Let's move those up a little bit. So again, at this point, we're just slowly manipulating these edges to kind of get closer and closer to a horse head. Let's pull this one down. Again, keeping things very, very simple. So the other thing I'm going to do, so let's just look at this from our front view. There's this little curve right here. So what I can do is just middle mouse select, so I have effectively these three edges right here. W to move. Can pull that up a little bit. You can see it starts to get that curve. So again, we're just effectively chipping away at these shapes. So again, this is something you can kind of just follow along with as I slowly start to manipulate these in place. So we're going to potentially want some ears here, and these would be coming off of the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these two areas right here, so these two polygons and these two polygons, and we're going to extrude those. But the only problem is if we try to extrude these at the same time, we just get kind of one brick. And what I want to do, go ahead and hit the undo key a few times, is I want to extrude this one. Let's move it out here. Extrude this one, and let's move it out here. So now I have two separate extrusions that are going to be his ears. He's kind of looking like a donkey at this point. So let's hit undo a few times. So I want to have a little bit of organization here. So without introducing any new tools, what I'm going to do is just do this kind of one step at a time and just be mindful of how much I move and scale things. So let's grab two polygons, use that extrude tool. Again, I'm using hotkeys, but under polygon is extrude. I can right click to activate that tool. Now what I'm going to do is just move this ear up. Let's move it up a total of 50 millimeters. So again, if I want, I can just put in here 50 space mm, hit enter. That one's good. So hit the escape key, drops the move tool. Now I'm going to grab these polygons right here. Same thing, left click the extrude tool, right click, and I right clicked to apply. The widget came up. Over here it says 50 millimeters. So again, if I put 50 millimeters in and hit enter, it actually isn't doing anything. So what I'm just going to do is grab this little up arrow, start moving it up, and then you can see that it just kind of reset. So 50 mm, hit enter. Now I know that these are up in the same height. So now what I want to do is kind of separate these a little bit. Let's change our camera angle. And now I'm going to use the scale tool. So again, switching right from the extrude tool to the scale tool. And I'm going to just scale these on just the z-axis. So let's click and drag. And again, I want to make sure that these are the same. So let's 85 is going to be good for right now. Grab this one, scale tool, scale that one to 85 as well. And again, if you're having trouble scaling this back and forth, you can always go in and manually put in the numbers, hit enter, and you see that it updates. Go ahead and hit that escape key. So now we have these a little bit separated. So at any time I could really easily grab both of these edges, grab the scale tool, and then scale these in a different way. Again, we're still scaling them on the z-axis, or this little blue bar, but now we can scale these and just get kind of the shape that we're going for. So one thing I want you to notice is if I use the move tool on these, I don't want to move them on the z-axis. I only want to scale on the z-axis, but I can move them up or down to change the shape or move them back or forward. Because again, what I'm trying to not do is break the symmetry. I want kind of the shapes on the left to be the same as the shapes on the right. And later in the semester, we'll go over some different ways of working with symmetry, but right now I'm just using the scale tool to kind of help me out a little bit. So from here, we're going to call this good. Now, let's go ahead and take these two edges, and we're going to do another loop slice. So jump into that Edit tab, left-click Loop Slice. And again, this one, it remembered that I had one last time. We're going to actually call that good, so I can just hit the Escape key. Then hit R to scale, and now I can kind of pull this out, and this is kind of simulating the width of his face. I'm actually going to grab the Move widget. Let's actually pull this up. So I want, overall, I want the top of his head to be a little bit wider than the bottom of his head. So let's grab all these vertices, edges, polygons, whatever you want on the bottom. So I'm just going to lasso select. I'm going to look down there and make sure that I have everything. Then I can hit R to scale. I'm just going to scale those in a little bit, something like that. So let's go ahead and look at our reference. So again, I'm not going to worry about the mouth at this time. We're just trying to keep the shape overall fairly simple. But let's go ahead to the front view. I'm going to grab, let's go to vertice mode. middle mouse click. So I grab these three vertices, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm just going to do the move tool. Just going to bring this in a little bit. Same thing. Bring that one in a little bit. Maybe let's even bring this guy down. So again, we're going to pretend like his eye would be about right here. This would be around his nose area. And again, this is realistically a very crude horse, but for what we're doing, it's working pretty well. So if you want, you can come in here and start kind of manipulating points around a little bit. Grab both of these at the same time. But again, I'll leave this up to you. You can kind of have fun with this step. But again, you can kind of noodle that as much as you want to get the desired result. So from this point, let's actually go to that front view. Right now, if I make a straight edge, my head's up quite a bit higher than this one. So I'm just going to move this down a little bit, about right there. Then let's go ahead and use that merge tool, or the bridge tool, to get these two pieces connected. So double click this edge right here, hold shift, double click this edge. And again, right here I have 24 edges selected, just being very careful I don't accidentally select the wrong thing. Now let's jump into that edge tab, left click bridge, right click or hit this apply button. Then let's hit that escape key and look and see what we got. So from here, what I want to do is have this guy have a little bit of a chest coming out and maybe a little bit of just kind of an overall S shape. So let's go ahead and switch back to edge mode, grab two edges, go to our edit tab, left click, and let's actually let's do a total of 3 edges right here, and we'll work with these, and then hit that escape key to drop that tool. Let's go back to that front view, and again, I'm holding the space bar and the control key to bring up this pie menu, but if you hate those, you can just go up to this little guy right here and hit front. So from here, let's go ahead and have these match a little bit better. And again, I'm just going to do that process that we've done, I don't know, 30 times so far, of maybe switch to vertices, and I'm going to middle mouse click, or switch to edges and double click. Either way, I just want to ensure and trust that I have all of the edges selected that go all the way around here. And then I'm going to use the scale tool. Oops. So I accidentally clicked. I tried to click the widget and I clicked off of it, which kind of moved my scale tool, which can have weird results. So let's just hit that undo key a few times until that widget goes away. Then I can just hit that scale tool again. Now I just want to make sure I'm grabbing just the red handle. Pull this out, W to move. So I'm just going to do this process a little quick. I'm just scaling on the x-axis and then moving on the x-axis. And this is overall just getting a little bit more of this curved shape going. And again, this is another one of those things that since we're going with a more organic shape, we don't have measurements or anything and we're not going off of an image. We're just kind of eyeballing this and stopping where we think it looks good. So let's actually go ahead and turn off our backdrop item. And from here, I'm going to double click these edges and now I want to manipulate the scale of the z-axis. So I want the bottom to be a little bit more thick and the top to be a little bit more thin. This guy probably be the thinnest, something like this. And from here, if I want, I can just go in, make sure that I have the correct ones that I want selected, middle mouse selecting, and now I can just kind of fine tune these and get them into place. And again, for this is probably the first more complicated shape that we're going to be modeling. So again, it's perfectly okay if we kind of screw up a little bit. This is just a time for us to experiment and kind of use these tools. So again, the other good thing, since I've been trying to make sure that everything's symmetrical, if I middle mouse click this guy, or I guess middle mouse lasso select, and grab this one, the middle mouse is going to select everything all the way through. Since this one is in that same space, I can feel confident of staying in my front view and moving these. So again, deselect, select, move, deselect, select, move. And again, later in the class we'll figure out, and I'll go over better ways of potentially solving problems like this. right now we're just working with the tool set that we have. Again, trying to keep this really simple. So again, realistically, we could make this shape quite a bit better. We could put more cuts into it, maybe model a mouth or something like that. But for now, I'm going to probably call this good. Let's go ahead and turn our backdrop item back on. I'll actually put just one more loop slice in here. Set this to 1. And that's just to get this curve looking a little bit better. And again, this is something that if you're having fun with this and you want to kind of make an extra loop here, start bringing these things up or down, manipulating them, and just kind of have fun with this shape and experiment with just modeling itself, you definitely can. But again, I don't want this video to get too long because we kind of had a lot of pieces we needed to run through. So stopping about right here should be perfectly fine. So again, we're going to call this good for this piece. So let's go ahead and save this out. And again, just make sure that you know where you're saving these, because we're going to combine all the pieces together with the chessboard later next week so we can finalize our chessboards and get those ready to be presented.